Hey everybody, and welcome to a very special video. Today I wanted to share my review of The Mandalorian Season 2 with you guys, and originally I uploaded this video to the Kanoa Reviews channel, but I also knew from the get-go that I was going to upload this to the Battlefront Max channel because of course it's about Star Wars. And I should say though that despite it's a video, you might as well want to consider this more of a podcast or an audio review because, you know, unlike with games, you cannot really show the content here because with movies and series, of course, copyright is a big issue. So it's just going to be these, like, Mandalorian photos in the background while I talk about it. If you guys like it, please let me know. I'm also very curious to hear your thoughts about The Mandalorian Season 2. And if you want me to do some more reviews in the future as well, for example, for each Clone Wars season, let me know. I'm properly watching Clone Wars right now. I'm in Season 1. Again, Season 1 is a bit of a slug for me, and I'm doing it on my own pace. I'm nowhere near done. I'm currently at the episode where Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Count Dooku need to escape from the Weequay pirates. But yeah, I would like to also do a review of the seasons, especially if they get better and better and better, and share it with you guys. So anyway, guys, without further ado, enjoy the review. So let's get right into it. Before we, of course, talk about Season 2, let's quickly let you know my opinion on Season 1. I thought Season 1 of The Mandalorian was okay. It wasn't anything special, and though it started out cool, and I thought Baby Yoda was a very likable, little character, I thought The Mandalorian itself was very cool. What I did not really like very much was that a lot of the episodes were sort of like stand-alone adventures, almost like Pokemon, where they go somewhere, there's an issue to be solved there, and after that issue is resolved, they continue on and never see those characters or that location again. Now, in retrospect, we do know, of course, that some of those characters in the Season 1 do, of course, appear again in Season 2, so that doesn't hold up as much, but you can definitely see that Season 2 is a bit more coherent in that way, since there is sort of an overarching plot, even though it is very thin, with, of course, getting Baby Yoda, or Grogu, to a Jedi, that is the overarching line that happens there, whereas in The Mandalorian 1, it's like, well, he got out of the guild, so now he just, roams the galaxy and finds a place where he can settle down, which doesn't happen. But I thought that Season 1 had a lot of cool, like, Easter eggs, and I don't know, I liked it. Whenever I saw, like, an X-Wing or an alien species I recognized, I had a small nerdgasm, but it wasn't anything special. Season 2, however, is something worth talking about, and we're going to take it slow here. We are going to talk about all the episodes. I got some water here, so you might hear me sipping on it from time to time because I do need some lubrication sometimes, as I'll be talking a lot here. Let's first off begin with the very first episode, The Marshal. I have the IMDb page up here so that I can actually, correctly name all of the titles of the episodes. First of all, The Marshal, very long episodes, very awesome, and what an episode to start with. First of all, it was almost as if, because of the pandemic, that some of the studios had, like, money left over that they wanted to, like, put into films that could not be made, and they said, here you go, Mandalorian, you have all this money, spend it, use it, because I don't think I've ever seen a series with CG or, like, sequences like this. I mean, the Krayt Dragon looked incredible, cinema style, in terms of scope and CGI. Then in the next episode, I think there's like this like awesome flight sequence with like X-Wings and the Mandalorian ship and many other segments. It's just the CGI is incredible and it's very spectacular. And dear God, they got their money's worth in terms of like special effects and CGI. So first of all, I love that about this. But let's start, of course, at the beginning of that episode. So he returns to Tatooine. First we have that, of course, that pretty cool, gruesome section in the beginning with the fight. I will say that the Gamorrean guards did look a bit plasticky to me. They looked a little bit dry, a bit rubbery. I'm not entirely sure why the old Gamorrean guards from Return of the Jedi look a lot better to me. They're all like slimy and gooey and ugh, and that was not the case here. Anyway, there he of course finds out that he needs to go back to Tatooine, and in Tatooine we meet up with that woman again, who some of the names I don't remember, but of course she helped him in season 1 of taking care of a ship. I know a lot of people actually dislike her character a lot. I don't think she's enough in it to where she's very dislikable. Her humor, or the humor that she brings, definitely is not mine. But I did not find her as annoying. But of course, he then goes to, what is it, Mos Pelga, I think? And you can very clearly see that this whole episode is set up in a Western style. Even, you know, where he, on his speeder bike, goes very slowly like he's on a horse. He looks left and right, and you see people coming out of, like, buildings that look like saloons. You know, oogling at the stranger coming on his horse from Western movies. He goes into a bar, and of course there he asks about someone else who has an armor like his, and of course it's the Marshal, also a very Western trope. And I was very surprised to find out that the Marshal was played by none other than Timothy Olyphant, which was also the Marshal in Deadwood, and a lot of Western movies under his name, so very cool there. I hope he's a Star Wars fan too, because what I think is very cool with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau is that they give a lot of Hollywood actors, but also directors, the chance to work on Star Wars, and I hope that, you know, Star Wars is something that they love from their childhood, and that, you know, it's sort of a childhood dream coming true to be part of this universe. But of course, word for word is that the Marshal is wearing Boba Fett's armor. I have some stuff to say about that, but we'll get to that when we come to the episode where he comes back. But basically, you know, they have the standoff. That's all very cool. And then they have the Krayt Dragon being introduced, and then they come to an agreement that they will help each other to defeat the Krayt Dragon. Again, awesome fan service here, you know, for the real hardcore fans. For example, I did not actually notice initially that one of the droids that the woman has, you know, the mechanic, that was R5, the actual same droid from the movie. I was later told, so that was actually something very cool. But what I of course did notice is that the speeder bike, or the speeder of Timothy Olyphant, was one of those parts that was also used in the same pod racer speeder, or pod racer from Anakin Skywalker. I heard someone say it's the exact same. I doubt that. I assume that there are other pod racers or pods out there, you know, that have the same sort of like build-up or same parts. But of course, then they come and meet with the Tuskens, and I thought it was indeed very, very cool how the Tusken Raiders got a lot more depth in this episode, and you got to see a lot more in how they, you know, behaved, how they were, instead of always being, you know, the pure evil baddies that we know from the movies, but also from the games. It was very, very cool. And, you know, the Tusken Raiders have been in the Star Wars universe since the very, very first movie, so they deserve their shine, and they deserve their spot. And I love that they got that attention. I really like that too, where, you know, the villagers had to, you know, put aside their grievances and help each other. Obviously, a big metaphor to the natives and the pilgrims, or the invaders. But that was all fine, and I thought it fit the Star Wars universe very, very well. And then the battle at the end was just one heck of a battle. It was really spectacular. Also really dark. Like, that Krayt Dragon, when it spits its like acid or whatever, you melt immediately. And not only Tusken Raiders, there were a few humans too that were caught in that, and they were gone in seconds. Also, an awesome segment where, you know, both, you know, Timothy Olyphant and the Mandalorian, you know, use their jetpacks to attack the beast. Just seeing the scope of it all, it was incredible. And to me, the final scene where the Mandalorian gets eaten by the Krayt Dragon and then flies out. Well, the thing explodes, of course, but then he flies out, was to me a metaphor of what, what explained what happened to Boba Fett. And again, we will talk about that in the 6th episode or whatever. But yeah, then that's it. And I thought it was a super strong beginning. A lot of fan service, but great fan service. Awesome to see the Krayt Dragon. Awesome to see all these things, referencing to the older movies, and it was just a really strong beginning. Of course, that final stinger, having the same actor as Jango Fett, like, who is that Boba? Is it Jango? Is it the clone? Who is it? But yeah, then episode 2. Episode 2, in a way, was probably my least favorite, because story-wise, it felt a little bit filler-like. At the end of episode 1, or the first episode of the season, you know that, okay, on Tatooine there's nothing, so he needs to go to a different planet or a different area. And so, at the beginning of episode 2, he finds out where he needs to go, but then at the end of that episode, he's still not there, and so basically you're still at the same point where you're left off at the first episode, because you know, okay, it's not on Tatooine, you need to go somewhere else. You never reach a destination, yet still, even though I say that it's my least favorite, it doesn't mean it's bad, because there's actually a lot to like here. First of all, the frog lady that joins him is kind of cute in a way. I don't know why. It's CG or practical, I don't know, but I felt... I don't know, it pulled my heartstrings that, this was like her last, little children that was just trying to protect, and just this mother instinct that she was having, and this, relying on the Mandalorian, on a stranger, and I thought it was a very cute story. I know a lot of people were outraged online about Baby Yoda, eating the little eggs. It's fictional, it's whatever, and he didn't eat enough to where, her whole race died. So, people were like, he's doing genocide, blah, 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 and it's like, oh, come on, you can better complain about something that's actually real than fiction. But I believe it is this episode where I talked about where they have that awesome segment where the 2 X-Wings are chasing the Mandalorian ship, and he's doing these awesome maneuvers, and then eventually gets stuck in this ice cavern where the frog lady, and I think that's actually her official name in the credits, but frog lady, she finds like an onsen, like a hot spring, and she brings her eggs there because of course the eggs are not well capable, or they're not able to deal well with the cold of the ice cavern. And Baby Yoda, who just wants to eat everything, finds this other egg that he wants to eat, but then it turns out that the ice cavern is home to thousands and thousands of eggs where all these creepy spiders are crawling out from, and it turns into like a horror movie for a moment. And again, the CG is brilliant. It's all basically done kind of in the dark and one color, but it's not to the point where you cannot see. You can very clearly see all the spiders, all their outlines, what they're doing. So it's not like what Hollywood does a lot, and they did this a lot in the season 1 as well, where they tried to camouflage some of the lesser looking CGI by doing it in the dark. Nothing of that here, and they have this awesome chase sequence. Again, awesome point there where the frog lady suddenly starts jumping to run away, and just it's really like blood-pumpingly exciting how that is, because they reach the ship and you're like, okay, they're in the ship, they're safe, but there are so many spiders that they just keep coming, and they keep crawling through all the nooks and crannies, and even if when they're in the cockpit, they're still trying to crawl through and using his flamethrower and everything, and the giant mother spiders trying to keep them off. And of course, the rebel pilots come and they save them. And overall, just the action, the spiders, what they look like, that in that sense, it's all very awesome and very spectacular. But again, in filler-wise or story-wise, it's the least. And how I watched this series, how I watched season 2, was by waiting until all the episodes were done, and then I watched 3 to 4 episodes maybe a day. And I prefer that because, again, and this episode demonstrates exactly why I'm doing that. because I didn't mind the episode a lot because I knew I could immediately watch the next one. You know, the story would immediately continue. However, had I watched this when it would come out on TV, you know, I would have waited a week for this, and the story didn't really, you know, move on. I knew I'd had to wait another week before something else would happen, and that I find annoying, and also it kind of pulls me out of the story, so I much prefer to wait until a couple of episodes are already done, and then watch a whole bunch in one day to keep me into the story, to keep that flow going, and that, I prefer that much more, and this episode is exactly why that is. Alright, then we come to the third episode, the Heiress. Awesome episode again. I believe this was directed by Bryce Dallas Howard, and I much more preferred this episode than her previous one, because her previous episode was actually my least favorite, because that was when I realized, oh dear, this series is going to be like Pokemon, where each episode is sort of like a standalone adventure, and might not actually be connected to one another or an overarching arc. But yeah, no, first of all, very cool intro sequence, very awesome planet where they go to. I always love water-based planets, and there's not enough of them in the main Star Wars movies. You know, Mon Calamari, the old Knights of the Old Republic has an awesome water-based planet, and there's just not enough of those being explored in actual, you know, the movies or the main Star Wars medias. One thing I also, by the way, to come back on the spiders, I heard that the spiders were in Star Wars Rebels, apparently. I have not watched that series, so I don't know. To me, they were new. But anyway, to come back on this episode, very awesome sequence with, of course, the landing, just the look of the entire planet as well. This awesome sort of like pirate dockyard, I don't know, industrial, you know, dockyard mixture, and, you know, Mon Calamari, I forgot what the squid type of Star Wars creatures are, but just very awesome to see how they all live there together. Of course, the frog lady gets reunited with her husband, very touching scene, and very funny scenes too, with, of course, Baby Yoda, you know, trying to eat his soup or whatever it is, and the little squid thing coming out, trying to, like, eat him. Very adorable. Then, of course, also, again, very high tempo here, which I love. You know, things are moving, things are happening with the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda on the little freighter, the little ship, and then one of the, God, what are they called? I don't know. One of the squid, creatures says, like, hey, do you want to see, you know, how a mama core or whatever it's called is being fed? You know, bring the little one. And I, for instance, completely trusted these guys. You know, I thought, oh, they're going to help him. They're going to, you know, bring him somewhere. And so it was a complete shock to me when he shoved Baby Yoda in there. And I was like, oh my god, he just got eaten. Maybe also a little bit of karma there because, you know, he ate so many of the eggs or whatever. So, you know, feeling like how it is to be eaten yourself. But yeah, no, awesome sequence there. And then, of course, the big thing was revealed that everybody was waiting for, is that Bo-Katan and 2 other Mandalorians arrived to save them. Now, here's the thing. Hopefully, some of you might know that I have not actually watched the Clone Wars. Now, I have begun watching the Clone Wars, but we will come to that in a little bit on why I did that. But basically, I always thought that, you know, season 1 of the Clone Wars was so childish and just kind of boring and bad that I never got through it, to where the Clone Wars apparently gets really, really good, like 3-4 seasons in. And, you know, I didn't want to skip that necessarily, so, you know, one time I started watching it and I stopped at like episode 7 or 8 because it was just like, ugh. It was really childish and just not really, I don't know, it didn't feel all that Star Wars to me. But basically, Bo-Katan, of course, is a very important character then, and I did read up a little bit about, you know, what's what and how things are, and I'm still not an expert on it, but, you know, watching her, and apparently it's also the same voice actress portraying her here, I thought it was very cool, and I think that she fits in the world here perfectly. And you know, watching this makes me go and revisit the Clone Wars and properly get to know her character and history. And yeah, no, I thought it was very cool. The armor sets looked cool. I love the more than Bo-Katan. I really thought that the other female was absolutely amazing. And apparently she was being portrayed by a pro wrestler. I don't really know her, but she kicked butt. And I don't know. I really loved how she was portraying that Mandalorian badassness. There was some humor in the series 2, or in this episode 2, especially where they, of course, locked the Mandalorians in the cargo hold control area, and all of the stormtroopers and the officers were blown out of the ship. It was actually also very awesome to see that ship, because I know that from several games. And just, you know, to acknowledge more, not just the comics or the Clone Wars series or Rebels series, but also the games, and putting that in the Mandalorian is, I think, such an awesome trait. And, you know, a lot of action that is happening, a little bit of overpoweredness with the Beskar armor, I do have to say, with the Mandalorian just going buck wild and taking all the shots, which is interesting, by the way, because the Stormtroopers have never been worse shots than in this series. But when the Mandalorian uses, you know, his Beskar to ricochet everything, suddenly the Stormtroopers hit every single shot on his armor. So that's a little bit finicky. But awesome display of the Imperial units as well. Of course, the officer who straight up murders the pilot and the co-pilot, and pilots or takes over control and just wants to kamikaze the ship into orbit without a second thought. Really, really awesome, and just, you know, just the perfect bad guys in that sense. And overall, just a very, very cool episode. I loved it, and I thought, you know, it was right back on track. You know, the name Ahsoka Tano was mentioned, so we knew where we were heading. So there again, the overarching arc was reestablished, so that was very cool. And I don't know, man, I just thought, man, the Mandalorian season 2 is on a roll. It is already better than season 1. What's gonna happen next? And then so episode 4, The Siege, which was directed by Carl Weathers, which is very, very cool to also see him act in it. And it was a very action-packed episode, you know, very much in the style of maybe like 80s, you know, 80s combat movies or 80s military movies, which of course he starred in a lot, so he knows action, and you could definitely see that. In a way, this was another filler episode, but again, the action and what was on display was so awesome that you know, that they got away with it. The humor with the blue fish guy did not really work for me all that well, but I thought that again, the whole battle at that base was very cool. There was one thing that I noticed that I have not heard anyone else talk about, and maybe it went over people's head, or maybe I just saw something where other people's didn't, but they talk about how there are never railings in the world of Star Wars, where you know, when people get shot, they always fall down in these like endless pits, right? And they make that joke about here, like, why are there never railings in this area? And so once the shootout happens, once like the volcano thing gets out of control, there's a scene. Well, first of all these stormtroopers are getting indeed shot, you know, from the railingless areas and falling to their deaths on this volcano. But then there's a scene or a shot where one stormtrooper gets killed, and he is standing on a platform with a railing, and he falls as two stormtroopers who are standing at a spot without a railing are looking at him fall. And I personally thought this was sort of like a joke or an homage at the fact that so many of the stormtroopers indeed get shot, or many characters in Star Wars get shot, you know, at places without a railing, and then this guy has a railing, still gets shot, and falls off. That's what I saw. Maybe I saw too much in it, but I don't know. After having rewatched it, I'm like, nope, I still see it, so I'm sticking to my guns there. I thought it was an inside joke that I got, and apparently not a lot of other people, but, you know. Anyway, so the they blow up the reactor. They blow up this base, and then this awesome chase sequence happens. You know, this awesome scene too, where the speeder bikes get off the cliff, and it's like so bumpy and so chaotic that like two speeders crash into each other, killing the scout troopers. Really badass action too, with like Cara Dune, is that her name? Cara Dune, like just squishing one of the scout troopers against a wall, and just having a good old time, just cheering it on at this death and glory that's happening here. You know, awesome scene too with the TIE fighters coming in, blasting it. This, you know, blood boiling, pumping, exciting action happening throughout all that. I will say though, I have had comments on videos where I talk about Star Wars and, for example, make a little bit of fun about the Stormtroopers. How the Stormtroopers are such elite soldiers and how they are so good and so badass. And in a sense, I will say that in Season 1, they kind of do look like that. At least they make the few Stormtroopers that are there, they make them seem badass. In Season 2, they are the worst they've ever been. There's not a single Stormtrooper in all the season that even gets close to being badass or looking competent. It is absolutely, if you are rooting for the Stormtroopers, oh boy, Season 2 of Mandalorian is not your cup of tea, let me tell you that much. I mean, I still like them, but literally in this episode, or in this season, they're not better than B1 battle droids. They're absolutely useless. But yeah, so that's that episode. Again, very cool, a little bit fillerish, but the action made up all the more for it. Then comes the next episode, and this is the episode that actually made me rewatch or started watching the Clone Wars again. And that's, of course, the episode The Jedi, where we have finally Ahsoka Tano in the official canon. Now, I know what you're going to say, Clone Wars, the series, is in the official canon. Listen, there are so many like cartoons and comics and whatever that for me personally, like if it's not, you know, on the big screen with actual people, you know, that's when it becomes official lore to me. You know, that's when I acknowledge, okay, Boba Fett is back. That's when I acknowledge, okay, Darth Maul is back. Mostly also because the Clone Wars, you know, that style is so different. You know, the Resistance or Rebels, it's so different. But there have already been name drops in there, so you know a lot of those stories you can already also take granted for canon. But yeah, no, having Ahsoka Tano here, being very expertly played by, God, now I forgot the actress name. She's so famous. She was Rosario Dawson, that's right. Very well portrayed. I love the fact that we have, of course, an older Ahsoka Tano, and I thought that the action was good. The episode was a bit dark. I would have preferred it if it was less dark. And where the first episode felt much like a Western, this one had a sort of a samurai Japanese feel to it, with some of the combat being quite slow, with the two, you know, opponents waiting to strike, waiting for one another. The episode itself, with its story where Ahsoka Tano needed to like battle against this evil woman to free the village, wasn't necessarily that special. But, you know, having the Mandalorian meet Ahsoka, having her mention Yoda, having her mention, like, I've seen, you know, what the dark side can do to a thing, hint, 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 hint. Anakin Skywalker was very cool. And, you know, I liked her personality that much, and her character, that, you know, I wanted to learn more about Ahsoka Tano and, you know, what was her history, because I remember in the first season, or even the movie, she started out as this like bratty, unlikable, loudmouthed child, and somewhere in there, in all those seasons, she's becoming this awesome, cool-headed warrior, like warrior princess almost, and it's awesome, and I would really like to see that development. And I believe she's also in Rebels, ? So I will probably also start watching that. But first, I'm now watching the Clone Wars again. And I've already gotten past to the previous point that I stopped. But I will tell you this. I still think that the Season 1 of Clone Wars is pretty garbage. With, the first time I stopped watching Season 1 was where R2-D2 was kidnapped. And the series was like, oh, are they going to get R2-D2 back? And of course we already know he's back because he's in the older movies, so there was nothing to be excited or like suspenseful to me. So I got really bored, and so I finally took it on myself to, you know, rewatch the episodes. I got past that episode, and what is the next episode that airs right after that? It is the one where Jar Jar Binks is the main character, and they think he's a Jedi, and I was like, oh my god, it just drags on, and the pain never stops. Now, luckily, the episode after that, where Luminara Unduli and Ahsoka Tano battle against Ventress, is actually very cool and one of the better episodes there, so that made it up all the more. But I'm not done yet with Season 1, so I'm still, you know, dragging myself through all that nastiness before coming, hopefully, to the good parts of the Clone Wars. But yeah, no, I thought that Jedi was cool. I don't love it as much as I know that some others do. I think the fact that many people have seen the Clone Wars and are much more familiar with Ahsoka Tano made it to where this is their favorite episode. Again, aesthetically, I think it was my least favorite because it just was so dark and gloomy. The planet itself looked cool, though. There were these awesome creatures on the background that were like bigger than the trees, and I was like, what are those about? But yeah, no, I thought she was very cool. Like, when, you know, Ahsoka Tano was a badass, but yet she was very nice when she interacted with Grogu. You know, she smiled. It was very heartwarming, and I thought that she was an incredibly likable character, and she fits Star Wars perfectly. So I'm very happy that they brought her to real life, to live action in that sense, and not only a CG character anymore. Then the next episode, The Tragedy, where officially we now have Boba Fett back, and of course he gets the armor back. I know also a lot of people love this, and I will say this, that initially I had my doubts about having Boba Fett back, and the reason why, it is so clear, no one can deny this, that when they made Return of the Jedi, and Boba Fett died, or like fell into the Sarlacc pit, he was dead. They declared him dead. He went out like the most bitch way you can imagine. Everything he does in that movie is incompetent. You know, he gets on the little like speeder thing with Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker cuts his blaster in half. Then he uses like this sort of like I don't know, this cord that he's shooting out of his arm to like keep him I don't know, to catch him, to keep him secluded. Luke Skywalker cuts through that cord like it's Swiss cheese, and then he gets, of course, punched in the jetpack on accident by Han Solo, and then he rolls into the Sarlacc pit, and the Sarlacc pit burps to even, you know, add some insult to injury. I mean, he was dead. There was nothing else that could be insinuated that he was not. It was only after they realized that Boba Fett became such a popular character, because he looked awesome and people were like, ooh, who's this character? I want to know more about him, that they decided, oh, you know what? He made it out. There's not a single fiber in my mind or my body that thinks otherwise, that is how it went. He was supposed to be dead. Oh, they like him. That's how it went. Same thing with Darth Maul. Oh, Darth Maul was cut in half. Oh, crap. Darth Maul's the best thing about Phantom Menace? Oh, shit. Oh, we have to get him back. He's cut in half, though. Let's give him robot legs. You know, that's how that goes. And I think it's weird. And in a way, it's what I'm really afraid of with Star Wars is how characters' deaths don't have any consequences. I heard only recently that a very popular opinion or fan theory is that Grogu was taken from the Jedi Temple by Mace Windu, because you apparently don't see Mace Windu die, right? You see him getting electrocuted and then he flies out of the window. And so there's all these fan theories that even if he didn't save Grogu, that Mace Windu is still alive somewhere. Man, I hope he's not, because so many characters die, and then it's like, nope, he's not dead. The Emperor dies. Nope, he's not dead. He comes back in episode 9. Boba Fett is dead. Nope, he comes back in The Mandalorian. Darth Maul is dead. No, he comes back in Thing. Who else is dead and doesn't come? I don't know. But so many people apparently die, and then they come back, and it's just, you know, give me a break here. Like, have some consequences here when people die. But you know, that's how that goes. But yeah, so it sounds a little bit weird, but I at first was very hesitant about Boba Fett coming back, and I was like, ugh, I don't know if I like this. What changed my mind, and I actually changed my own mind about this, is I love the hallway sequence of Darth Vader in Rogue One. I thought it was badass. It was very cool how Darth Vader was portrayed, and I was like, yeah, this is how Darth Vader really is, and this is how, you know, you really get to, you know, get back that sense of fear that he always had and whatever. And then I thought about it, and I was like, Darth Vader was never portrayed in the older movies like he is in Rogue One. You know, he only uses his lightsaber on Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's it. You never see him chop up rebel scum like he does in that movie. And so I was like, it felt so natural to have that scene there, because we all, you know, already put the puzzle pieces on its place with how badass Darth Vader was, and this movie just, gave us affirmation that was indeed true. And because they did that, because they showcased Darth Vader like that, and you know, it felt so natural, even though we have never seen him like this, I was like, okay, they can do that with Boba Fett too. You know, where Boba Fett was kind of a klutz in the older movies, but apparently he's super badass and he can escape. I was like, okay, they did it with Darth Vader. You know, I took it there, so I'll give it to Boba Fett as well. So I'm actually glad that he's back. I still will need a little bit of convincing of how badass he is, because they have a lot to make up for with how he was portrayed in the older movies. And I think that Rodriguez definitely did that here, because boy, does he go to town on those stormtroopers. I mean, you literally see like pieces of their helmets and armor being slashed off with that weapon that he uses. It is brutal too. It is like, Robert Rodriguez, of course, is very well known for very gory and adult movies. And he definitely took this as far as he could with probably a PG rating, and everything felt very raw and pretty bleak. I mean, also that scene even where like the big boulder rolls down a hill, like stormtroopers get squished. That one guy with the turret gun is just shooting the boulder and nothing's happening, and he gets squished and blows up. It's pretty gnarly and pretty graphic, and I actually kind of liked it. So that was very cool. It was a very short episode. Of course, the Dark Troopers are introduced here as well, which is also very cool, because that, I think, is officially also from a game, from Dark Forces, of course. So, very cool there. Of course, these were the 3rd edition, the third mark, so even better, apparently. But I thought that they were very cool. They were only in it very briefly, but it was a very short episode, but straight to the point. You know, Boba Fett is back, that's what you get. And it looked awesome. It looked awesome. I thought it was pretty cool. Then chapter 15, the one to last episode, which was again the Bill Burr episode. And I really like Bill Burr, and I also like really what they do with him in Star Wars here, where I think Bill Burr really likes Star Wars, because he likes the older Star Wars stuff, and he definitely doesn't like some of the things they did with it over time. You know, in the season 1, there's that really funny joke that he makes about the Gungans, and you know, he makes more stuff or more of those remarks here, and I thought that was very, very cool. The action was pretty cool, with the pirates coming in over. It did make me realize that sometimes the action here is to the point where it's not super suspenseful to where I'm worried that something will happen to the Mandalorian, because he's so overpowered with the Beskar armor and everything, that it's just, you know, to enjoy the spectacle and the action itself. It's not like, ooh, is he going to die, or is something going to happen to him? You know, this episode made me realize, like, no, all of these characters are pretty much safe. But I thought it was very cool that they went undercover as, of course, the Imperial troopers, and that scene was actually very lovely, where they saluted the stormtroopers and the stormtroopers clapped for them, and I thought it was very cool to also show the stormtroopers not as pure evil, and some of these soldiers are just regular soldiers. The sequence, of course, with the officer at the table felt very Quentin Tarantino-esque, a little bit like Inglourious Basterds, that opening scene where they have this conversation. Also about Operation Cinder, which is, I think, from the game, so that was very cool, from Battlefront 2, which was very cool to acknowledge there. Again, having so many of these references, not only from the series or the comics or whatever, but from the games, is super, super cool. And, Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau really know what they're doing. It's absolutely incredible what they are doing and what source material they're pulling all of these references from. But yeah, no, it was very, very cool. The action scene then afterward, also very cool. Again, stormtroopers absolutely useless. They get shot and they fall down that dam. But again, the whole set of that dam and that location was all like tropical and jungle. It was very cool, and again, spared no expense. It looked amazing, big budget. It was really, really cool. Not a whole lot happened, of course, in the episode in terms just of story, where the whole point of that episode was just to find data that would tell them where Moff Gideon was. And then we come to the final episode, people. The final episode. And if you've seen the episode, we have to talk about the final episode, but we'll do it slow. I also actually see on IMDb that the episode is, by more than 40,000 votes, is voted a 9.9. Let me just say that I don't disagree with that. So the episode, first of all, begins where they reunite with Bo-Katan and the wrestler girl, my favorite Mandalorian, so that was very cool. They make a very fun remark about the clone. Oh, actually, that's in the previous episode, isn't it? Where Boba Fett says, like, they'll recognize my face. Meaning, like, oh, you know that he is a clone. But very, very cool. So they reunite with Bo-Katan, and then they head towards the ship that Moff Gideon is at. They use this, cool maneuver where Slave 1 is firing upon the Imperial shuttle that they steal. Oh yeah, that scene is there too, where they steal the cloning expert from the two Imperial officers or pilots. And that is something that some of those bad guys are just really comically bad, to where they hold the cloning expert hostage, and one of the pilots says, "I surrender, I don't want anything to do with this," and the other guy shoots him. It's like, they're very like stereotypical comic style bad guys. I did like how they talked about how millions of people died on the Death Star, how that had consequences, and that the rebels were basically terrorists in their eyes. I thought that was actually very cool for them to acknowledge them, because that has been a point of discussion by fans for decades. Where they say like millions of people died and everybody in the galaxy cheered. But then again, why work on a place called the Death Star? Why work in the cantina of something called the Death Star? But then I have to always remember that funny skit of Eddie Izzard with the cantina, the Death Star and Darth Vader waiting at the cantina to get a meal. Anyway, a little bit of sidetracking. They arrive on the ship, and then they have this cool sequence where basically all the female characters in the crew head through the ship, and again, just slaughter stormtroopers all over. It was almost to the point where the stormtroopers reminded me of like the generic bad guys from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers, where whenever they would be sent out, you knew, okay, no one's ever gonna get hurt. We're just gonna get some cool, looking fighting scenes. And that's really what these stormtroopers are all about. They're just cannon fodder. That's their whole function. You have that cool sequence, of course, where the Mandalorian himself has the duel with one of the Dark Troopers, and it's very visceral, and you know, he has trouble you know, killing only one of them, and then, you know, via smart move, you know, he pushes them all out of the dock there into space. And I remember when he did this, I was like, oh, is that, you know, because they were all made from CGI, was it too expensive to have them longer? You know, it felt a little bit cheap, a little bit quick to have them, you know, deal with so quickly. Then you have a very cool battle, of course, with Moff Gideon and the Mandalorian with the Darksaber. Again, because I have not watched Clone Wars and Rebels, the whole history with the Darksaber is also not that familiar to me, so I hope to get more educated on that as time will pass along. But I thought that the actor of Moff Gideon, who was of course also Gus in Breaking Bad, he's also now in The Boys, he did a very good job. He's of course not a fighter, but he gave it his all when he did battle, and I heard somewhere that he went through like 7 or 8 you know, lightsaber props because he was, you know, being so rough with it. But I thought it was very, very cool because you see that he intends to kill the Mandalorian, not knowing that the Beskar can actually withstand that. So of course then you have that interesting plot twist where he gets captured and the Mandalorian now has the Darksaber, wants to give it to Bo-Katan, but she cannot actually get it because it has to be won in battle. Now, I already heard someone say that in the series, in the Clone Wars, there is actually a point where she gets it from someone and she takes it, so that is a little bit of a, you know, something that's canonically not correct. But then, of course, all of a sudden, all the Dark Troopers come back. You have this awesome sequence with great music, really not Star Wars-like, but really fits perfectly as the Dark Troopers head towards the bridge where they all are, and you know, they close the blast doors. They're all pointing their guns to the closed doors as the Dark Troopers get in position and start punching the door. And then you see one X-Wing, right? And this is the moment, people. Now, unfortunately, sorry, but I mean, that's how YouTube works. It sort of was already spoiled for me. I didn't actually see the thing, but, you know, with YouTube recommendations, I kind of already, like, knew or could guess that it was probably him that was returning, but seeing the sequence for the first time, even knowing what probably would have happened, was still absolutely freaking amazing, because in the beginning, you might not notice it because it might, like, okay, there's one X-Wing, maybe more will follow, right? Maybe like a whole fleet will appear and it will be a big battle. But, you know, then the one X-Wing docks at the thing and Bo-Katan's like, you know, state your business or state your ID, what are you doing here? And probably if I didn't know it, I might have not actually put that connection to it yet. However, you see that one shot and the music suddenly changes, right? It becomes this like mysterious, beautiful, but also a little bit sad as you see this robed figure walk through the hall. And if I would have probably seen that image for the first time without knowing what would have happened, I would have lost my mind. I would have probably, like, I watched it with my family. I would have probably screamed out if I would have seen that. I mean, because never ever did I thought or did I think that they would go there. You know, I was thinking, like, okay, what other Jedi? Because Ahsoka Tano, of course, says, like, you know, a Jedi might contact Grogu, blah, blah, blah. So you could say, okay, we might see another Jedi. So it could actually be Cal from the Jedi Fallen Order game, or maybe someone else, or Obi-Wan or whatever. But, you know, never in a million miles would I have thought that they would go back to this character. But basically, you know, when you see the robed figure, you're not 100% sure yet. You think you know, but you're not 100% sure yet. You see then the lightsaber, you know, there's a Jedi with a lightsaber battling the droids. You're like, oh, could it be? Is it actually him? We don't know. The screen doesn't show color, so what is it? And then it is revealed that there's the green lightsaber. You're like, oh, it is him. Yet even then, there might still be a very small chance that it's not him. Even though we don't know anyone else with green lightsaber at that point. But you see him chop it up. It you know, it is robed figure, and then what really stood out and what gave it away is the glove. Does he have a glove and only wears it on one hand? You know, does he have the Michael Jackson? Does he have the robot arm on his right And he does. You see him force push a droid out of the way, or a dark droid out of the way, and you're like, oh my god, it is Luke Skywalker. You know, the character that I loved so much from the original movies, and that did such damage to him in The Last Jedi. It is incredible. You could write a book about how bad they did Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. And again, I don't want to rant too much about The Last Jedi, because I just want to get this off my chest, because I remember Rian Johnson or someone saying that one of the reasons why he made Luke Skywalker like this is because in the Star Wars universe, Luke Skywalker was also this bigger than life figure, and he wanted to see that sometimes celebrities that we worship in real life are, or in reality are, actually not that special or not that great and whatever. And though I can agree with that statement, that it might indeed be that celebrities or, you know, larger than life people are actually, or might look better than they actually are, this does not count for Luke Skywalker, because in the older movies we've already witnessed how great Luke Skywalker is. If it was a character we only heard about, like for example Snoke, it works with Snoke in my opinion. I wasn't actually that annoyed that Snoke died like that, because we have never actually known about Snoke. We didn't know what Snoke was, what he was capable of. So to me, when he died, he was like, oh, he was just more, you know, he was like a puffer fish, you know, making himself big, but in reality he wasn't anything special. But with Luke Skywalker, we've seen him blow up the Death Star. We've seen him, you know, go and save his friends in the middle of training, even though everybody says, no, finish your training, you're not ready to face Darth Vader. And even when he finds out that Darth Vader is his father, you know, he still sees the good in him, you know, and potentially one of the most evilest or evil people in the galaxy, and he goes out and tries to save him. I mean, Luke Skywalker is an amazing selfless character in that sense, and you know, to have him become this really nasty alien tit milk drinking old fart is just, it's it's a crime, man. It's a crime in script writing what happened there. And I was so happy that hopefully, I think in a way, I think Jon Favreau thought the same, even though he probably will never admit it, because of course, you know, Disney will slap him. But this was the apology to all the fans, saying like, look, we know what happened to Luke in the Last Jedi. We're going to give you the Luke you all wanted and loved. You know, and it's the darker Luke from Return of the Jedi, where in Return of the Jedi there's a scene where he straight up force chokes a Gamorrean. I don't think he kills him, but he uses some pretty dark force powers there. And you know, he also says like, you know, this is your last chance, Jabba. Release us or die. Like, Luke is not messing around anymore. He's not that little farmer boy anymore. He's like, no, if you don't release us, you die. You're going to die. And that was the Luke we saw here. You know, no hesitation. The hallway scene was also amazing. Again, the music was just great. Again, a bit sad, maybe because Luke was, you know, a little bit darker compared to the earlier movies. And again, if you want to compare, no, I do think that the hallway scene with Darth Vader in Rogue One is better, but it was just, again, great seeing the green lightsaber, seeing him slice through all the droids, just absolutely dominating them, that final droid just crushing him with the Force, with his glove. It was just amazing. And then, of course, they show his face, and everybody on the internet is talking about how bad it looked. In all honesty, I didn't think it looked that bad. I think where mostly you can see it is how it doesn't show a lot of emotion. They try to have him move as little as possible, and I think that gives it away that it's indeed not real. There is, of course, a scene somewhere where they do a deepfake on the internet and they compare, and I do think that the deepfake looks a little bit better. But in my opinion, because people said like, oh, he looks like a PlayStation 1 character or something, it didn't look that bad to me. I thought it was fine. So yes, and just, you know, knowing that it was Mark Hamill himself who did that, who got back in those robes, who actually said the lines. They de-aged the lines, obviously digitally, but you know, to have him also perform the movements, the few little movements that there were, was just I'm so happy for Mark that he got to do that, because again, they did him dirty, and I already saw that he loved seeing the reactions of so many people on that scene, and you know, knowing that after being done so dirty in The Last Jedi, that people still love his character so much, and you know, having a little bit of redemption or whatever in the Mandalorian is, I think, an amazing gift. And just everything about that scene, man, just it went better and better. You know, it's that scene where Grogu, first, you know, you think, oh, he doesn't want to go with Luke, but then Luke says, no, he wants your permission. You have that beautiful scene where the Mandalorian takes off his helmet. You know, they look each other into the eyes, because of course, you know, Grogu's going away for God knows how long, and he wants to see the face of his father, you know, what to him is his father, you know, for real, instead of the helmet. It's just this beautiful scene where he touches his cheek, and you know, he's still scared. You know, he hugs him before he goes, and then R2-D2 comes out. I was like, oh my god, it just keeps getting better and better. R2-D2, the character that I just criticized a moment ago in the Clone Wars because they stole him, but here I loved it because they just showed him, of course, because it's always Luke Skywalker and his good old buddy R2-D2. They went through a lot together, and again, R2-D2 also gets absolutely done dirty in the new trilogy. He's barely in it, but no, very cool. It's awesome too, where, you know, seeing R2 makes Grogu a little bit, you know, easier, or at ease, and just this beautiful emotional scene with everybody looking as they walk away. You know, the music swells. Also awesome when Luke takes off his robe and you see that it's him. They have that Luke Skywalker theme just woven in there with the music, just a little bit. It's just absolutely magical. And the ending to the episode was also absolutely perfect, because I was thinking, like, what could you all, you know, else do for the ending? And it was just nothing, because it was Luke and Baby Yoda and R2 walking through the elevator, everybody looking on at this, you know, majestic figure, you know, taking Baby Yoda with him, and then the elevator closing, and then that's it. You know, Baby Yoda is safe. He will be trained over the next coming years. And the Mandalorian probably will go on somewhere else, and that's all you need to do. You know, if they ended it with they went away and the Mandalorian would be in a ship and take off, it would be less powerful than this. You know, seeing the Mandalorian, seeing his son be taken away for training, you know, tears in his eyes. It was beautiful. It was perfectly done. It was incredible. And man, I've rewatched that ending scene probably 5 times. Already. It did not make me cry, like some people, and some scandals apparently were there too, but it definitely got me choked up, I can tell you that much. It's amazing. Just having me talk about it actually makes me want to watch it again, so I might actually watch it again while I render and edit this video. But it's incredible. It's The Mandalorian Season 2 is everything that people say it is. It has single-handedly, like, relit the spirit of Star Wars. And don't get it twisted, Star Wars was very much in a pickle, and not even, I thought about this, was it in a pickle only after, like, the last trilogy ended? And I was like, no, it's been in a pickle for the last 3 years. Ever since The Last Jedi, people were like, well, maybe Episode 9 will still save it, or they'll do something, but you know, deep in our hearts, we knew it wouldn't. And I like Episode 9 more than Episode 8. But that's not saying much, because Episode 8, Last Jedi, is so low, and it's so garbage that you know, it tries to rectify some things and, like, save some stuff that, you know, was dealt by Last Jedi, but it cannot save it all. And just the new trilogy, I have no intent of, like, rewatching it or whatever. And of course, also the Solo movie was fine, but it's the only Star Wars movie. That's not true, actually. I also have not rewatched Episode 9, but for a long time it was the only Star Wars movie that I've never rewatched. Up until this day, still. The Solo movie I've only watched once, and for some reason, again, I don't hate it, but I also don't have the feeling to rewatch it again. So yeah, for 3 years, definitely Star Wars was in a dark spot, and it was like, well, they want to do all these series, you know, they canceled, or not canceled, but they put the Obi-Wan series on hold, they put the Boba Fett thing on hold, you know, when it's coming back. And of course, recently they announced all these series coming to Disney Plus, and with the success of Mandalorian, you know, it is back. And I think it you know, it's difficult for such a thing to put it on only a few people because it's such a huge production, but I do definitely think that the writing is what saved this, and I think one has to really attest this to Dave Filoni, but most importantly Jon Favreau, for doing justice to what Star Wars is, and he's done an amazing job, and he himself saved this franchise to the point where it still has a future. I'm not implying that he saved the franchise because it was dead. It's not dead, but it was like all the cool stuff. What were the older movies, the older series, whatever, and the newer things did not really have a future. But now with this, you know, it's going to be cool to see what's coming out next. I'm not entirely sure what the future will hold for The Mandalorian. It's going to sound weird, but I'm actually going to be perfectly fine if The Mandalorian does not have a season 3. I think they did say they're going to have a season 3, but maybe you can have 1-2 where like The Mandalorian himself will have to do one final thing or whatever, but to me it feels very much complete. They're going to, of course, have the Book of Boba Fett. Everybody freaked out about that. Okay, I don't know the Book of Boba Fett, but apparently it's very cool. He's very epic, so bring it on, you know. I still need a little bit convincing about how much of a badass Boba Fett is, so, you know, I'm welcoming that series next year, so I'm very curious how that's going to be. Of course, there was that stinger at the end, where now he's on the throne at Jabba's palace. He kills the other guy. Who's the other guy? Fortuna? Something Fortuna? Sid Fortuna or whatever. He kills him. He gained a lot of pounds. But no, I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool. I love that Star Wars has a bright future ahead of it. This is what they should have done in the beginning with the new trilogy. Hire people that actually care about the franchise, and not someone like Kathleen Kennedy, who just very clearly shows that she has no idea what she is doing with the franchise, and her decisions alone with hiring those directors. And it's not only her, because Rian Johnson had complete creative freedom with The Last Jedi, you know, managed to destroy something that was so dear to all of us. So I don't know. I think The Mandalorian Season 2 is absolutely amazing. I'm not necessarily going to... Well, maybe I should give it a verdict in terms of like a number or something. I don't know. I've never actually given a number to a season, and it's difficult to actually compare it to something. But The Mandalorian Season 2 is probably the best series I've seen in 2020. There wasn't a whole lot to see, of course, in terms of series, but it is amazing. And where I didn't really think I could recommend Season 1 to other people, Season 2 of The Mandalorian is so cool that it makes me want to like recommend it to you know, people who are both into Star Wars and not even into Star Wars. It's just also a very awesome series if you're just into action or sci-fi. So it very much is a job well done there, and a masterpiece among series there. Anyway, guys, that was the review here. Again, as I said, it was very long. It's over an hour, not scripted, so it doesn't sound maybe as professional. But if you guys like this, I could do more of these videos. Sometimes, again, they don't require as much planning because it's just me shooting the crap. And if you want to see also more series reviews, you know, if you want me to review, for example, the Clone Wars that I'm watching right now, or something else, let me know in the comments down below. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening, probably not watching, and I'll see you guys next time.